everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Migration Stories Labour Adda, a space where we take a moment to pause and look beyond just the headlines and bring together the key developments on migration from the past month. Be it policies, be it reported stories, and ground realities, both from India and beyond. As readers, we must have often observed that migration appears as an isolated headline. It could be a policy announcement here or an incident there. But at Labour Adda, we'll try to place these stories side by side and understand the patterns they point to. Today, we are bringing those stories together around one central theme, through one story, many lives, that has repeatedly surfaced in recent weeks. The recurring attacks on migrants, the othering and the environment in which these incidents unfold. India is home to an estimated 140 million internal migrants, people moving across state borders for work, education, marriage and family reasons. These workers are central to multiple sectors like construction, manufacturing, domestic work, logistics and services sectors that literally build and maintain Indian cities. And yet over the past few months, news reports from different parts of the country have pointed to a worrying pattern. Migrant workers being attacked, profiled or targeted. This month, the Migration Story reported from the village of Ramnarayan Baghel in Chhattisgarh, a migrant worker who had left home for the very first time to travel 2,000 kilometers in search of work to Kerala. 5 days after he arrived in Kerala, he was lynched to death. The reason? The attackers suspected him to be a thief and a Bangladeshi. And his reason to migrate so far away from home? To build a house. That's it. Not wealth, not migration abroad, not escape. Just a house. But this was not a standalone incident. In the past 2 months alone, media reports highlighted multiple incidents from various states of India. Raja Ali, a migrant from Goghat in Assam, attacked in Odisha for speaking in Bengali. Diljan Ansari, a migrant from Jharkhand, attacked in Bengaluru for being falsely identified as a Bangladeshi national. Rintu Sheikh from West Bengal was attacked and killed in Maharashtra, and similar incidents were reported from Raipur, Coimbatore and Chikmagaluru. And as we mention and talk and count these incidents, there is no official consolidated data on the exact number of such attacks against migrants in the country. Each story appears briefly and then fades, even though when taken together they suggest a broader pattern of vulnerability. And this is not just India's story. Across the world, migration has become one of the most contested political issues of our time. According to the International Organization for Migration, there are 281 million international migrants globally today. Basically, people living outside the country of their birth, which is 3.6% of the global population. The International Labour Organization also estimates that 167.7 million of these are migrant workers in the global labour force. Several news reports globally have looked at the enforcement of anti-migration policies. In the United States, for instance, news footage over the past year has repeatedly shown immigration and custom enforcement raids, detention centers, and deportation operations. In recent weeks, cities like Minneapolis and Maine have featured prominently in reports where migrant communities, including South Asian and Latin American workers, have spoken about fear, profiling, and sudden arrests. The US crackdown also includes action against Indians who were deported for being illegal migrants. You might remember the images from just last February. Young men in handcuffs escorted by US authorities onto flights. Visuals that were widely carried across news platforms. Such flights had also landed in Amritsar. Many of those on board had taken irregular routes, often after spending years and large sums of money trying to reach American cities in search of work. ICE's operation and tactics were also scrutinized by local leaders and residents, who accused the federal agents of acting too aggressively when conducting such arrests. These visuals circulated widely on television, on different social media apps, and we are here to ask why they matter. They matter because they reflect a larger global understanding of migration, where migrants are not considered as workers or contributors, but as mere burdens on the limited resources of a country or a city to be managed. This global framing has local consequences. In many European countries like Norway, France, Amsterdam, and others, recent elections have seen a surge in anti migrant parties contesting and even winning with the support from the youth. Countries have witnessed widespread protests and anti migrant rallies, with migrants being portrayed as threats to jobs, securities, and even national identity. And while these developments may seem geographically distant, they create a wider atmosphere in which suspicion towards migrants becomes normalized. This is also unfolding alongside a sharper political focus on migration in India. Many political leaders cutting across national and regional parties have been vocal about anti migrant sentiments through their speeches and addresses when language has become a battle cry and when migrants were later being targeted for not speaking the local language, for their religious identities, or even religious celebrations. This anti migrant sentiment was at the root of the attack on Ramnarayan Baghel. In January, I traveled to Karhi, Ramnarayan's village, and spoke to families of those who migrated to Kerala with him. One question we asked them was, does fear change the decision to migrate? What many families told us was that though this fear exists, economic necessity often outweighs it. People spoke about higher wages in destination states, about building homes, educating their children, paying for medical treatment for their aging parents, and leading a better life. For them, safety was not as much a concern as survival was. In India alone, domestic remittances sent by internal migrants are estimated at over $10 billion. That is roughly rupees 80,000 crore. Internationally, India received about $120 billion in remittances in 2023, which was the highest in the world. These numbers help explain why migration persists even in the face of risk. As we cover these stories, one line from them captures a lot beyond just a single incident. It becomes a larger reflection of the realities that surround migration. One line that stood out for us was what Lalita, Ramnarayan's wife, shared about why he migrated so far away from home. I quote, "He kept saying once the roof is done, things will become easier. He wanted the land back that we had mortgaged and the house completed. That was the plan." It is a simple statement, but one that reflects a common aspiration seen across migration stories: the search for stability, security, and a place to call home. Even as we speak about these grim realities, not all migration stories are about exclusion. Through these episodes, we'll also bring in stories that bring the promise of hope, the hope scope for us. The migration story reported from Singapore last month on how the island country is expanding support systems for migrant workers, including housing standards, safety norms, and access to services. Well, that's all for this edition of Labour Adda this time. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back next month with more reporting, more context, and more stories from across migration landscapes.